Gang, right now what we're looking at is pretty straightforward. It's simply the actual overall umbrella process of the client getting connected to the wireless LAN controller in order to get connected to the network in terms of VLANs, right? That's our focus right now is how does this work with VLANs? So remember our VLAN numbers that we have associated with this. We identified a VLAN 14 over here on the switch. So that exists. We identified that we would allow VLAN 14 over this trunk port. We have configured the client to connect to an SSID called Corp. When that happens, we get connected to the access point, but remember this is lightweight, so everything is occurring using this CAPWAP tunnel. That's what's providing the framework that we're actually using. So our data goes through the tunnel, goes into the WLC environment. Now, physically, right, this is where things get weird, right? We got logical versus physical. So physically, yes, it actually went this way, right? But that data was actually encapsulated. So what we actually had is the access point sending CAPWAP data to the WLC across the switch. What is it going to use? Well, it's going to use whatever VLAN is associated with that access port. So let's say that was using VLAN 12. And typically, as we said, we want to configure that as the native VLAN on our trunk port here. So we connect to the access point. The access point builds that CAPWAP tunnel and is going to forward it using VLAN 12 to connect through the switch to the WLC device, which is going to de-encapsulate the data, revealing the SSID of the frame, which is then transposed into the VLAN identifier, which, assuming policy allows it, will then be forwarded out the trunk port to the switch using 802.11q VLAN tagging. The number 14 is associated with that, which then means that the switch will need to have the ability to then switch that to typically a router which has an interface for VLAN 14. So again, that could be the layer 3 switch itself, has a virtual interface for, it's got a 192.168.14.1 address there in the switch, or we're forwarding that onto a router so that then we can route it onto the rest of the network. But it doesn't have to work that way. Potentially you could have directly off this switch wired devices that are in that same VLAN. There's certainly not a requirement that a particular VLAN number is used only for wireless and nothing else. But with that said, it's best practice, all right? For purposes of quality of service, security, we really like to just have that SSID be associated with a VLAN and a router interface. That's it, right? So that everything that is coming from wireless into the rest of the network here has to go through a routing service to make that happen. So either in a layer 3 switch or on a physical router, depending on the size and scope and configuration of your network. So hopefully that helps you to put some of those pieces together. We've been doing the configuration of the switch, looking at the WLC side and the access point side. Hopefully that puts it together and you can see what we were building.